So, hey guys, what's up? It's the Culture Detective here, investigating your favorite anything. And today I am going to do something special because it is I have about 14 days left until the DSEs, which are basically the ultimate final exams of my life. And I have made 3 mind maps with this very useful mind map app called the Simple Mind. And I have made 3 mind maps, one about chemistry, one about physics, and one about biology, which are 3 classes that I take and 6 exams that I need to take as well, because for each subject here I have to take 2 exams, one for the core, one for the electives. So I will, so as you can see, physics is the most simple one, and the second most simple one is chemistry, and the most complicated mind map is the biology mind map. So we're going to go to the simple one first. Now, keep in mind that this is only a work in progress. There are still a lot of stuff that I haven't added to my mind maps yet, but so far I have made a lot already, so I will make a video about it, and I think I have covered pretty much everything. I don't think there are that many big things that I've left out. So yeah, I'm gonna just make a video about it. So first of all, we have physics, and our first chapter is also simultaneously the easiest chapter in physics, and that is heat, as you can see right here. The first thing we learn about are thermometers. Now, there are several kinds of thermometers, but I didn't write them down. We need to know how to calibrate them, and we need to know how to tell the temperature by them, because some thermometers tell in Celsius, some thermometers are in Kelvin, some in Fahrenheit. Next, the concept of melting and boiling points. Easy, simple, no need explanation, and then specific heat capacity, which is related to mass, but specific heat capacity is more useful. And we also got the latent heat capacity. And there are 2 types, fusion and vaporization. Fusion being state transition from solid to liquid, and vaporization being liquid to gas. Which moves over to our next topic, gas. We actually have a lot of stuff in gas, but I just narrowed it down to 2 things, ideal gas laws and kinetic energy laws. For the ideal gas laws, I actually didn't... I should really fill in... Oops. I should really fill in some more equations here. But you know, this is 2 of the easier equations here, but there are many other equations, like Ke equals to 3 RT over 2 Na, but Na being the Avogadro's number. So I'm going to make it an N instead to avoid confusion. Alright, third topic is optics. Optics being, light. So we have laws of electromagnetic waves, how they travel in a straight line, how they would be absorbed, they would reflect, they would refract, and that sometimes, actually, a lot of the times, they go through mediums. And of course we have reflection, and then we have refraction, and for refraction we have refractive index. And we also have total internal reflection, which is related to critical angle. And there's also a formula for figuring this out. And then we have the lens. We have the convex lens and the concave lens. And for the convex lens, the image produced is different, depending on at which position in relation to the focal length of the lens is the object placed. So, fourth topic is mechanics, the most difficult topic in the entire physics syllabus. We have velocity and deceleration and the 4 great formulas. I haven't even typed in the 4 great formulas. I'm not going to do that now. This is relatively easier. Then we have Newton's 3 laws, inertia, which is the first law, the second law being F equals to ma, force is proportional to mass times acceleration and also action and reaction. We have energy, we have work done, which is basically force times displacement. And it is a unit of energy. Of course, we have potential energy and kinetic energy, which have the equations, the formulas of mgh and 1/2 mv squared, respectively. We also have momentum. We have moment. We have projectile motion, which is incredibly annoying. But the most annoying is, of course, circular motion. And gravity is very abstract. Up next, we have waves. We have different kinds of units. The amplitude, the period, frequency, wavelength, and wave speed. We also have electromagnetic waves, but it's already previously discussed, so we don't have much. We have mechanical waves, though, how to turn mechanical waves into a transverse wave graph, and the contraction and rarefactions of a mechanical wave, or a longitudinal wave, while electromagnetic waves are basically converse waves. We have stationary waves. We have waves changing its I think it changes frequency. It changes nope, frequency unchanged. Wave speed and wavelength changes depending on how deep or how shallow or how dense and less dense the medium are. We also have diffraction. We have the degree of spread depending on the gap, the slit, or the frequency of the wave. And we also have two different kinds of interference, destructive and constructive. Up next, we have electromagnetism. The first half is electricity. We have series and parallel, where you connect different appliances or resistors in series versus in parallel. There's a huge difference. We also have AC versus DC. They are different as well. We have Ohm's law, V equals to IR, voltage equals to current times resistance, right? And of course, we have resistivity, and there is also a formula for resistivity, which I think is R equals to PL over A, where A is the surface area of the material, L being the length, and the P actually being the resistivity, and R being resistance. We have the concept of short circuiting. Domestic circuits are important, as well as sockets. Did I add that? I don't think I've added that before, but sockets, they're important as well. We have the right hand thumb. Okay, now we're going into magnetism territory, which is more abstract. We have the right hand thumb rule for current carrying wires and solenoids. We have the Fleming rules, the FBI for the right hand, which is generating magnetic force, I think. Yes. Nope. Left hand is the one that generates magnetic force. Right hand is the one that generates potential difference or voltage. Alright, up next we have transformers. We have Lenz's law. Transformers being, you can actually use a couple magnets, couple coils in order to, I guess, either increase a voltage of a particular current. Well, it's not like that. It's more like you can either increase the voltage of a certain string of current, I guess. I don't even know how to explain it. We have Lenz's law, where if a magnet leaves another circuit, it sort of creates a circuit. It generates a current. It's kind of abstract. We have motors as well. All right, something more simple, radiation. There are three types of radiation, three basic types anyways. Alpha radiation, beta, gamma. Alpha being the most ionizing one, of course, and gamma being the least ionizing, but it penetrates the most. We have the decay constant. Now, there are several formulas as well. We have nuclear fusion and nuclear fission. All right, we have an elective chapter here, E3 energy. We have light energy, and there's a solar constant. Thermal energy, we need to learn the OTTV value, the value of heat transmittance into an establishment. We have thermal transmittance and thermal conductivity, of course, and we have air conditioners, their coefficient, yada yada. We have different applications, vehicles, and some vehicles, I think particularly petrol electric hybrid vehicles, they use regenerative braking. We also have different types of cooking devices. We also have generation of energy. We have renewable sources such as solar panels. There is a particular formula. Again, we have hydroelectric, which actually depends on potential energy generated by the water falling down, and we have wind energy with the formula of power equals to 1/2, I think, PAV cube, and of course times coefficient. Anyways, we have nuclear power as well, so there's that. E4, medical physics, the harder of the two. We have human stuff, first of all. We have human vision. We have endoscopes, and we have coherent and non-coherent bundles. We have diopter, which is related to focal length. We have Rayleigh's criterion as well. For human hearing, we have the different sound intensity levels, which also has an equation. If you do not mind me, I have... Shoot. I think this is the equation. I may be wrong though. I0, or I0, I guess. And this is the intensity level, and this one should be dB actually. Anyways, we have fonts / curves of equal loudness, and we also have different scans. We have ultrasound, we have A scan and B scan, we have X-rays, CT scan, and gamma ray scans, or radionuclide scanning. So there we go, the entire physics syllabus. It's already 12.5 minutes long. Okay. Chemistry time. Okay. First off, we have natural chemistry. We talk about atmosphere, and in the atmosphere we have oxygen, nitrogen, and you can get them with fractional distillation. In the ocean we have water, of course. To test for water, we have this and this, which are hygroscopic. To extract water, we can distill it, and we also have salt. And for salt, to test it, we have the flame test, which can also test other metals. We have silver nitrate test as well. And for the extraction, there's crystallization, evaporation, filtration, and sublimation. Which, I guess, I mean, it depends on which kind of salt you're talking about. If it's ammonium chloride, then sublimation definitely works. We have the earth, we have minerals, and the calcium cycle. Well, I'm not going to spend too much time here, but, stuff. Also, this is not CO2. This is supposed to be H2O. But yeah. Up next, we have the periodic table. We have periods. Number of periods equals to number of electron shells. Period 1 basically has 1 or 2. The electron configuration is 1 or 2. For period 2, it's 2-1 or 2-2 or 2-3 and so on until 2-8. And then for period 3, it's like this. And there are different groups with alkali metals. For group 1, relative reactivity increases down the group. Same goes for group 2, alkaline earth metals. Group 7, halogens. Group 0, noble gases, which are unreactive. And then we have bonds, different kinds of bonds, formation of ions, which leads to ionic bonds, of course. We have the covalent bond, which also leads to dative covalent bonds. We have the metallic bond, the hydrogen bond, and the van der Waals forces, aka the inner molecular forces between molecules, right? This one is between hydrogen and fluorine, or oxygen or nitrogen in decreasing order of electronegativity. And for hydrogen bonds, actually just HF, NH3, and H2O. And yeah, between metals, between nonmetals or semi-metals, between metals and between a metal and a nonmetal. Alright, for van der Waals forces, there are different factors affecting its strength, its molecular size, its molecular shape. Straight chain / rod shaped, definitely better than branched chain / spherical shape. Alright, for molecular structures, we have simple molecular structure, and we have giant structures as well, the ionic, the covalent, and the metallic. They're brittle, so there's that, and there are different kinds, diamond, graphite, and quartz. Alright, we have the metal reactivity series, which is actually extremely important. So this is the list. I will not spend... Shit, did I just delete anything? Okay. Anyways, requirements for rusting. You need oxygen and water. Alright. And then factors that speed up rusting include acidic pollutants, soluble ionic compounds, high temperature attachment of less reactive metals, because they are stronger oxidizing agents, and scratched, bent, or sharp area. And to prevent it, there's a rust indicator. So you can check this out. Potassium hexacyanoferrate, phenolphthalein, and a little bit of sodium chloride salt. Preventions. Coat with paint, plastic, oil, or grease, galvanizing, tin plating, or electroplating, cathodic protection, sacrificial protection, and alloy. Alright, for acids and alkalis, we have basic reactions, and we have solubility in excess alkali, in excess NaOH. These ions will redissolve. I made myself a really dumbass slogan. Aluminum, lead, and zinc, and we have a silver, copper, zinc, which will redissolve in excess ammonia solution. We have pH negative log concentration of hydrogen ions equals to the level of pH. We have different indicators. We have methyl orange, we have litmus, and we also have phenolphthalein. And we have strong versus weak acids. Actually, it's not exactly dissociate. It can also be deionized depending on the nature of that acid or base. For molarity, we have titration, basicity, which is basically number of moles of alkali over number of moles of acid. We have percentage by mass, and we also have back titration. And now we have organic chemistry, which is one of the biggest topics. We have the homologous series. We have alkane, haloalkane, alkene, alcohol, carboxylic acid, aldehydes, ketones, amines, amides, and esters. And they can all interchange, so you need to check the conversions table. Now we have polymers. We have addition polymers and condensation polymers, which requires concentrated sulfuric acid to extract the water molecules. For isomers, we have different kinds of isomers. We have the structural isomers, including chain isomers, functional group isomers, and position isomers. For stereoisomers, we have cis isomer and tran isomers. And I should probably write down the difference between boiling points and melting points. I think trans isomers are harder to melt, have a higher melting point, but cis isomers have a higher boiling point. And then we have optical isomers, aka enantiomers, as well. Up next, we have special hydrocarbons. We have acetyl salicylic acid, or aspirin. We have detergents, soap, soapless detergents as well, including sodium alkyl benzene sulfonate and sodium alkyl sulfate. We have nylon, popular. We have nylon 6,6, and we have polyesters. All right. Up next, we have... My mouth is tired. We have molecule shapes. We have the Octet Rule. There are elements specifically that defy the Octet Rule: the beryllium, boron, iodine, phosphorus, and sulfur. We have different shapes, symmetrical shapes being the linear, trigonal planar, tetrahedron, trigonal bipyramid, and octahedral, and these shapes are all non-polar. We have the asymmetrical ones, the trigonal pyramid and V shapes. We have polarity. We have electronegativity, which generates hydrogen bonds and van der Waals forces, and we also have polarity cancellation. Okay, for electronegativity, in decreasing order of electronegativity, fluorine, oxygen, chlorine, nitrogen, bromine, iodine, sulfur, carbon, phosphorus. We have different crystals, ice crystals in C60, aka Buckminster fullerene, the low melting point, not soluble in polar substances like water, but soluble in non-polar substances, of course, like tetrachloromethane, I think. Alright, redox, the toughest chapter of the bunch. We have different kinds of batteries. The primary battery being zinc carbon cell, alkaline manganese cell, silver oxide cell. The secondary batteries including lithium ion cell, nickel metal hydride cell, and lead acid accumulator. We have chemical cells, and salt bridge is an essential component which completes the circuit and provides ions to balance the charges. And we also have the chemical cells where we have reduction and we have oxidation. Yeah, it's pretty complicated, and we have redox and other batteries as well. I forgot to add the zinc carbon battery, the hydrogen fuel cell. I mean, there's a couple that we need to study. We have electrolysis as well. All right, up next, enthalpy change. We have exothermic versus endothermic. Here are different, more popular examples of exothermic and endothermic reactions. Apparently, baking bread is an endothermic reaction. Standard enthalpy change. This is the definition. And we have formation, neutralization, and combustion. We can't perform this in our lab. We can't perform formation. We also have Hess's law. Right, Hess's law. And this is the definition of the law. And you can use this law to calculate other standard enthalpy changes of other reactions as well. Alright. Up next we have equilibrium. We have equilibrium constant, equilibrium position. If Kc is basically the equilibrium quotient, and Kc is the equilibrium constant, and you can only change the equilibrium constant by changing the temperature or pressure, but Qc is more like the moment in the reaction, the instantaneous moment in the reaction, not when it had achieved equilibrium, because it's a reversible reaction, you know. Anyways, if it's shift to right, the pressure increases, volume decreases, temperature increases for endothermic reaction, temperature decreases for exothermic reaction, and the product is removed. So if it's shift to left, then everything here is inverted, of course. Up next, we have the collision theory. We have the concentration of reactants, which changes the number of effective collisions, the temperature, surface area. We have the catalyst, Haber process, which is the most popular one, of course, with the contact process. And we also have yeast. We have the instantaneous rate, of course, I've mentioned Qc, and we have molar volume, which is 24. And then we have E1 analytical chem, the easier of the two electives. We have inorganic analysis, I've mentioned them already. We have organic analysis, bromine test for alcohol. We have oxidation test, iodoform test, Lucas reagent. To test for aldehydes and ketones, we have the 2,4-dinitrophenylhydrazine, the Tollens reagent, which reacts to aldehydes only. We have the carboxylic acid. And to do that, you have ester formation and sodium hydrogen carbonate. And we have the separation of and purification. For separation, we can do distillation and fractional distillation. We can do liquid-liquid extraction, and we can also do chromatography. There are 4 kinds: paper, thin layer, column, gas. And there's purification, recrystallization, and then we have the quantitative analysis and the instrumental analysis, including infrared spectrum and mass spectrometry. The harder of the two electives is industrial chemistry. Order of reactions, Maxwell-Boltzmann curve, energy profile. We have different catalysts, the homocatalyst, heterocatalyst. For hetero, there's a possibility of catalyst poisoning. We have NPK fertilizers, N being nitrogen, P being phosphorus, K being potassium. We have different ways of electrolyzing brine, mercury, electrolytic cell, diaphragm cell, and membrane cell, which is actually the best one. We have methanol synthesis, we have atom economy, and this is basically chemistry. Oh my gosh, my mouth is broken. But no worries, because this one is the big boss. We're at 25 minutes. Amazing. About to be 26. Alright. For biology, first chapter, cells. There are common organelles in a cell. Cell membrane, vesicle, nuclear membrane, DNA, RNA, nucleus, which are in the nucleus. I need to drink some water. Common organelles also include endoplasmic reticulum, which has smooth and rough. Rough being the ones attached to ribosomes, because attached with ribosomes to synthesize proteins, while the smooth ones synthesize lipids. I'm pretty sure of that. We have the Golgi apparatus, which modifies and packages proteins, and we also have mitochondria, powerhouse of the cell. Cell wall, which only appears in plant cells, also only appears in plant cells, chloroplast, and vacuole. Plant cells, yep. Alright, we have substance movement, diffusion. We have simple diffusion and facilitated diffusion via channel proteins or carrier proteins, actually. We have osmosis, which depends on the water potential. If a cell is hypertonic, water rushes out. If it's hypotonic, water rushes in. We have active transport, and we also have exocytosis, not to be confused with other stuff, exo-related, you know. Enzymes. We have different types of enzymes. Catabolic and anabolic. We have a lock and keys model. We have different factors rating the rate of enzymatic reaction, the temperature, pH level. The inhibitors, we have different kinds of inhibitors. We have the competitive inhibitor and the non-competitive inhibitor. The non-competitive inhibitor, which is actually the more damaging one because it straight up destroys the shape of the enzyme. But the competitive one basically just, sits in the active site. Alright, food. We're on our fourth topic out of like 52 or something. Food, carbohydrates. We have monosaccharides, disaccharides, and polysaccharides, and they sort of form polysaccharides. I think hemoglobin is a polysaccharide. I might be wrong. Anyways, there are different kinds of lipids. I'm not in a hurry to write down what kinds of lipids are there, but you can figure them out, of course. Triglycerides, yada yada. Proteins, we have primary proteins, secondary proteins, tertiary proteins, and quaternary proteins. Come to think of it, why did I say hemoglobin is polysaccharide? I am actually a dumbass. I'm referring to a quaternary protein. Duh. Vitamins, we have vitamin A, B complex, C, and D, and a bunch of others, and some of them are soluble in water, some of them are soluble in oil. Up next, we have the digestive system, one of my favorite chapters in the entire biology. Syllabus, we have the teeth, we have different structures of the teeth, and we have different types of teeth. Incisors, canines, premolars, and molars. And we also have the tongue, we have saliva, and saliva we have amylase, which is an enzyme which digests maltose and turns them into glucose. And then we have esophagus, we have peristalsis, which is basically a kind of movement. We have stomach. The stomach has gastric juice, which contains a few things. And, okay, I just can't move at this point. Sphincter, cardiac and pylori sphincter. Gastric juice also consists of pepsin. We have okay, I can't even move right now. We have the liver, which has bile. Bile can emulsify fat, and it's alkaline. And we also have a bunch of other functions as well. for the liver. So check that out. We have duodenum, which regulates pH because pancreas comes out of nowhere, and we have pancreatic juice. And then we have the intestines. We have the villi for the small intestines specifically, and we have the anus, which has the feces and digestion. Of course, everybody loves that. Up next, we have the respiratory system, which is more annoying. We have the nose, the nasal cavity. For the nasal cavity, we have ciliated epithelial cells, mucus-secreting cells, basically trapping the dust and the bacteria, and these ciliated epithelial cells has cilia, which beats it to the larynx. Actually, the pharynx, duh, the larynx is not related. Then we have the entire trachea pathway. It's not just trachea, we have bronchi. For the trachea, we have the C-shaped cartilage, and for the lungs, we have the air sacs. There's gas exchange, and there's inhalation and exhalation. There's a bunch of stuff related about the intercostal muscles and stuff, yada yada. Alright, for circulatory system. This is rather simplified already. For circulatory system, we have blood, we have heart. For the blood, there's a difference between arteries and veins. There are different types of vessels, arterioles, aorta, arterioles, stuff, not going into details. We have blood pressure, we have different chambers in the heart as well, right and left ventricles and atria. And we have the principle of respiration. Up next, we have lymphatic system. We have the formation of lymph and the pathways, which basically feeds back to the subclavian veins, which are basically very near the vena cava, near the heart, which then feeds into the right atria, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's right atria, the first chamber. Anyways, we're finally talking about plants, plant nutrition. Different deficiencies of plants. If they don't have enough nitrogen, this will happen. If they don't have enough phosphorus, this will happen. If they don't have enough potassium, this will happen. If they don't have magnesium, this will happen. And then for plant transportation, we have xylem, phloem. Xylem having a particular structure, particular function. Phloem having a particular structure and a particular function. And then afterwards we have transpiration, which has the cohesion theory, and this also kind of relates to the leaf structure as well, which I will not go into detail of, but the mesophyll cells, the spongy mesophyll, the palisade mesophyll cells, everybody knows that. And then up next we have the supportive cells, we have the turgidity and rigidity, and for the rigidity we have lignin, which appears in woody trees. Alright, for photosynthesis and respiration, two of the toughest chapters in the entire biology syllabus. For photosynthesis, we have light stage or photophosphorylation, and then we have the Calvin cycle as well, or some people will call it the citric acid cycle. And then we have respiration, which includes glycolysis, Krebs cycle, electron transport chain, or I think it's also known as oxidative phosphorylation, and the Krebs cycle actually also includes the oxidative decarboxylation. And each of these things take place in a different area, like glycolysis taking place in the cytoplasm of a cell, Krebs cycle taking place in the matrix, and this taking place in the cristae of a mitochondria. And anaerobic respiration, there's actually two kinds, the yeast kind, which produce ethanol, and the human kind, the muscle kind, which I guess produces, or any muscles actually, just muscle, lactic acid. Now for growth and development, we have dry mass versus fresh mass. Dry mass is definitely more useful. But if you want to test for dry mass, you're probably killing the organism too. Anyway, we have regions of division, elongation, and differentiation. We have seeds, and for seeds, we have the structure, and for the structure, radicle, plumule, and cotyledons. And the radicle, I think the radicle grows and becomes the roots, and plumule grows to become the stem, and cotyledons provide temporary food so that the thing can germinate. And we also have the growth thing. Alright, cell division, we have the cell cycle. This is the cell cycle. We have mitosis and meiosis. Meiosis is basically mitosis, but twice. That's why meiosis has 4 daughter cells, mitosis has 2 daughter cells. Mitosis is basically the separating of sister chromatids for identical reproduction. But for meiosis, we need some genetic variation because, when you're, growing kids, trying to make kids, you need meiosis. So it separates the homochromos and then the sister chromatids. And each of them include prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. Alright. Moving over to plant reproduction, we have vegetative propagation, basically cloning. Stem, tuber, bulb, corm, rhizome, stuff like that. Rhizome being the ginger one, bulb being the onion one, stem, tuber being potato, and corm, for example, water chestnut. For flowers, we have receptacles, nectaries, stalks, and petals. Stamen is basically the male part of the flower. We have anthers and filaments. And for carpels, we have stigma, style, ovary, and ovule. And there are different ways of pollination. With insect pollination and wind pollination, you can tell by the structure of the flower. And for seed dispersal, we have bursting, wind, water, and animals. Now, everybody loves this chapter, human reproduction. For male, we have the pee-pee, and we have glands. For women, we have the coochie, cervix, and uterine. We have the ovaries, we have the oviduct. And then we have eyes and ears. Finally, we are halfway through the mind map. Eyes and ears, which is actually pretty cool. Pretty cool chapter as well. For eyes, we have the front of the eyes, we have the conjunctiva, cornea, aqueous humor, and iris. For pupils, we have the ciliary bodies, lens, and suspensory ligament, which doesn't make up the pupil, but it's related, definitely. And for the back end of the eyeball, we have different membranes like sclera, choroid, and retina, as well as rod cells, cone cells, yellow spot, and a blind spot as well as some optic nerves. And then we have a few defects like nearsightedness and farsightedness, and also another kind which I forgot to write down. We have the bright dim and the near far stuff. If you want to look nearer your lens, your eyeball lens need to be more convex, and in dimmer situations, your pupil should dilate. Ears, outer ear, we have auditory canal, the pinna, and the eardrums. And for the middle ear, we have ear bones, oval window, round window, and eustachian tube, which is connected to your pharynx. For your inner ear, we have semicircular canal, which is actually responsible for your balance, and auditory nerves and cochlea. Up next, plants growth. We have auxin, which is a hormone in every cell produced in the stem cell, and it sort of goes away from the illuminated side. Up next, we have the nervous system, which is also pretty cool. We have different kinds of neurons. There are different types of neurons, motor neurons, sensory neuron, interneurons. We have the structure of neurons, dendrite and dendrons, myelin sheath, which has a couple of functions, axons and synapses. For the brain, we have the cerebrum, which is the big brain. Gray matter should be... We have spinal cord, and the gray matter is inside. So for this one, the gray matter should be outside, and this one should be inside. Cerebellum, which is responsible for other functions, coordination of the body, medulla oblongata, of course, spinal cord for reflex actions, 3 membranes, cerebrospinal fluid, and cranium. Alright, up next we have the endocrine system with different glands. We have the pituitary gland, which actually has posterior and anterior. So there's that. We have the thyroid gland, adrenal gland, the pancreas, and testes or ovaries, depending on your gender. Bones. We have the structure of bones. We have compact bones, spongy bones, and the yellow bone marrow. Just white blood cells staying in your bone marrow, of course. We have different types of bones. We have axial bones and appendicular bones, and we also have several joints in our body, hinge joints, ball and socket joints, and also some unmovable joints. I didn't write that down. Yep. Unmovable joints. We have a structure of joints with synovial membrane, cartilage, and the ligament. Alright. And then we have muscles, we have tendons, dark bright bands, flexor extensor, and the lever principle. Alright. Biodiversity. Probably my favorite chapter. We have different kingdoms. We have animals, plants, fungi, eubacteria, and archaebacteria. There's actually, I think for eubacteria there are 3 kinds. There's the pylori, which is a spiral one. There's the rod one, and there's a sphere one. Yeah. Anyways, for plants, we have hydrophytes, halophytes, and xerophytes. But also we have a moss, and then vascular plants, which have ferns and gymnosperms, or naked seeds, and flowering plants. For flowering plants, we have dicots and monocots. For poikilotherms, in animals, we have fish, amphibians, and reptiles. And for homoiotherms, we have birds and mammals. And all these are actually core data, because they have a spinal cord. Up next, ecology, one of the biggest chapters of the whole thing. We have levels. I'm not going to go into details. We have different factors affecting how organisms be. For physical factors, we have temperature, light, humidity, wind speed, and water current. We have chemical factors like salinity, oxygen concentration, and the soil is very important, like the humus amount, particle size, and pH of the soil. And for biological factors, we have the niche, the habitat, the diversity, and the dominant species. We have predation and competition and symbiosis, which there are 3 types of symbiosis: parasitism, mutualism, and commensalism. Alright, we have succession, primary and secondary succession. We have different pyramids of numbers and biomass. And we also have different cycles, like nitrogen cycle and carbon cycle. The nitrogen cycle being the most annoying one, because there's this whole root nodule thing, which can, I guess, replace, I think, N2 fixing bacteria. And for measurements, we have quadrats and transects and belt transects, which is basically a combination of the two. Now, we have E1, homeostasis, and E1 is separated into 4 chapters. Number 1, water content. Dialysis tubing hormone is ADH, antidiuretic hormone, and we have the reabsorption and ultrafiltration in our kidneys. Number 2, body temperature. We have the shivering, sweating, skin hair, skin vessels, and shunt vessels being in play when our core and peripheral body temperatures are being changed. And for the third part, gas content, we have hormonal pathways, we have the nervous pathways, the hormone being adrenaline, we have diastole and systole of our heart, and we have the hormone being thyroxine, which is actually number 2. Oops. For number 4, reproductive cycle, my favorite one, we have the menstruation cycle, which is absolutely awesome. Uterine lining thickness, the follicle, ovum, yellow body, the hormones being progesterones and estrogen, and the other hormones being FSH and LH, which actually inhibits the secretion of progesterone and estrogen. And then we also have the contraceptive methods and the human chorionic gonadotrophin. Up next, we have genetics. We have different structures of genes, of chromosomes, the telomere, centromere, chromatids, you know the drill. We have different types of inheritance. We have monohybrid inheritance, dihybrid inheritance, sex-linked inheritance, and we have codominance and incomplete dominance as well at the same time. And we also have Mendel's 3 laws of inheritance, which is SID, S being segregation, I being independent assortment, and D being dominance. And then afterwards we have protein synthesis as well, the transcription and the translation, and there's also a chance of mutation, which includes the mutation in chromosomes and nucleotide base pairs. E3, biotechnology, which is the simpler but also the more annoying of the 2 electives. We have different types of biotechnology. We have recombinant DNA, genetic modification, cloning, polymerase chain reaction, or PCR, and DNA fingerprinting or gel electrophoresis, where we have different applications as well. which includes generating more hormones, making our immune system better. We have different kinds of gene therapy, somatic and germline being the one where you can inherit the gene, and we also have the stem cell therapy, and there is also bioethics being considered as well, which includes safety problems, legal problems, social problems, ethical problems, and environmental problems as well. Next topic, evolution. For evolution, we have different types of fossils, the body fossils and the trace fossils, and there's different ways of investigate the fossils by radioisotope dating. And there are also different types of different kinds of limitations when you're trying to figure out the theory of evolution with fossils. And we also have speciation. We have Lamarck's theory, which is not good. We have the evolution tree, and we also have Darwin's theory, which involves natural selection and speciation. Up next, diseases, which is the big thing right now. Basic knowledge. There's different ways of transmitting a disease. Like a hepatitis is transmitted through sex, and COVID, the corona is transmitted through air. We have different cardiovascular diseases, we have different cancers, we have the benign tumor, which is actually not cancer, but almost. We have the malignant tumor as well, which is definitely cancer, and we also have diabetes, the type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes, type 1 being the diabetes where your body isn't secreting enough insulin, so in that case, just inject yourself with some insulin. But for type 2, it's way worse because your liver is not responding, either that or your body cells are not responding. Now over to your immune system. We have different types of barriers, chemical barriers and physical barriers. I should do that. Physical barriers and chemical barriers in your body, like your tears, saliva, stuff, skin, hair. And we have different kinds of immunity, passive immunity, active immunity, primary and secondary immunity as well. And we also have different kinds of white blood cells. We have the phagocytes, and we also have the lymphocytes, which are smarter. And for the lymphocytes, we have the macrophage, and we also have the B cells and T cells. The B cells, I think, are the cell-mediated... wait a second. Nope, B cell is, the humoral path, the humoral immunity path. And T cells is the more violent one, cell-mediated response, cell-mediated immune response. And then we have antibodies, which has different functions, lysis, lysis, agglutination, and toxin phagocytosis. So there's that. This is biology. My throat is completely broken now. Let's end this.